Today we're going to learn how to set up GNS3 server on AWS. First, we'll create an EC2 instance and then install GNS3 with OpenVPN. Then we'll download, install, and configure the OpenVPN client for your workstation. After that, we'll set up GNS3 to connect to the GNS3 server. The reason I host my GNS3 server on AWS instead of my laptop or a physical server is mostly for portability. I can access it from no matter where I am or what computer I'm using. Also, I can scale the EC2 instance based on what I'm doing. Plus, I can let other people use it if required. I work in an environment where I train a lot of people on routing and switching technologies, and I can use this for teaching or for them to train on. There are a few steps to get the initial GNS3 instance up and running, but we'll make some shortcuts which will allow us to repeatedly blow away and create new GNS3 servers very quickly. So there are some prerequisites. First, you'll need to have an AWS account. It's pretty easy to sign up, and you'll get the first year free as long as you stay within their free tier usage. And everything we do here today will be within the free tier level. Also, you'll have to have a GNS3 client installed on your laptop. Okay, let's get started. First, an overview. This is the topology that we will be creating today. On the left-hand side over here, we have you, which is the user. The user will be accessing the GNS3 client. The GNS3 client will be reaching through a VPN via OpenVPN, which is on their laptop, and we'll install that in this video. That connection will reach out through the internet, go to a VPN termination point that resides on the same GNS3 server that we'll create today. And that GNS3 server is sitting as an EC2 instance on the AWS platform. Okay, the first thing that we'll need to do is log into the AWS Management Console. And once here, look for the EC2. Click on EC2. After that loads, you're going to want to go over to Instances. We're going to launch a new instance. We want to come down and we're going to have to choose the Ubuntu server. Doesn't necessarily matter which version that you're using. This may update as this video gets older, but definitely choose the Ubuntu server. Hit select. We want to stay within our free tier eligible range, so use the T2 micro. Click Configuration Instance Details. Over here, if you have a special VPC that you use or a special subnet that you want to put it in, feel free to change those parameters. You do note that this will need to have access to the public internet, so don't place this in a private subnet. If you have any startup scripts that you'd like to run the update utility when the instance first loads, you can go ahead and paste that in here. Next, we're going to add storage. 8 gigabytes will work just fine for this particular instance. Next, we can add our tags. We'll go ahead and add the name. We'll call this the GNS3 server. Okay, configure security group. Now this one we are going to have to pay a little bit of attention to. In order to have our GNS3 client and our SSH client successfully connect to the EC2 instance, we have to add some rules to the security group to allow those connections to happen. So the first rule, SSH, we're going to allow that. We're going to lock it down a little bit, so just my IP address can successfully connect. Going to add another rule. This one's going to be a custom UDP rule. And this one we're going to have for the actual port that the VPN is going to connect on. That's going to be 1194. We'll also lock that down so it's just my IP address that can connect. And we'll add one more rule, and this will be a custom TCP rule. And this is going to be 8003. Lock this down to my IP address. And this last one, it's used to browse to the GNS3 server to download your OpenVPN configuration file. Okay, we can review and launch that. Everything looks good. Go ahead and launch that. I'm just going to use my existing key pair that I already have Just make sure if you're setting something up new, you know where you're saving that key to. Launch instance. Okay, we'll go ahead and view our instances. And while that's getting spun up, what I'm going to do is come down here and I'm going to copy this public IPv4 address to my clipboard, and then you'll need to launch your favorite terminal emulator software. I use Commander. You can use PuTTY, you can use Secure CRT, whatever client you use for SSH access. We'll type SSH-L, specify the username. For EC2 instances running Ubuntu, the username is Ubuntu. We'll go ahead and put in the public IP address of 3.83.40.177-I, so we'll specify the key location. I already got this copied to my clipboard, so I'll paste that in here, but that will be unique location and key name depending on whatever you've used. And yep. Okay, so now we're in our EC2 instance. First thing that we're going to do is go to the temp directory and then clear the screen. Then we'll paste our first command in here, and that's grabbing the installation script from a Git repository. Go ahead and hit enter. Okay, I'd already got that downloaded. Next we'll actually grab the installation command here. And we are going to want to run this as an elevated user. Go ahead and paste that in there. And this will take a little bit to complete, probably almost 5 minutes. So I'm going to go ahead and pause the video while that's running. Okay, the installation has completed. And at the end here, you'll see that the installation recommends that we restart the server to complete the OpenVPN installation and generate the OpenVPN client configuration file. So we'll go ahead and do that now. Reboot now. All right, so it closed the connection. We'll wait till the server reboots, and then we'll continue on with the next installation tasks. The next thing that we need to do is download the OpenVPN client for use on whichever GNS3 workstation you'll be accessing the client from. So open up a web browser and navigate to https openvpn.net/community-downloads. You'll land at this page. In particular, I'm using a Windows workstation right now, so I'm going to download the Windows installer. Click on OpenVPN install, and the download completes. Pretty small file. Go ahead and click on that. And we'll continue through the installation. All the default options should be good. Installation should only take a moment here. All right, click next. I don't need to see the README. Our EC2 instance has rebooted. We're going to go ahead and log back in. Now that we're back into the system, we can see download the VPN configuration here, and it gives us an address to the OpenVPN configuration file. Just want to copy that, and we're going to paste that in a web browser and download the configuration file for use in our workstation's OpenVPN client. Come into a browser, paste in that address. It'll download that file. You're going to want to go to the OpenVPN GUI icon, right-click, import file, and the downloads location, or wherever you may have downloaded that file to. You want to find the .ovpn file. Click on that. Open. File imported successfully. Okay, we're good to go. Come back down here one more time, right-click, and connect. A status window will open up, And we should see an indication here shortly that it connected successfully. And there we go. We're successfully connected to our EC2 GNS3 server instance via a VPN. Now that we're successfully connected to our GNS3 server with a VPN, we want to go back to our terminal window, and you want to note the tunnel IP address right here that you're going to use for your GNS3 client. This is the IP address that you're going to point your client to connect to the GNS3 server. So let's copy this address, and then now we'll launch GNS3. And currently it's set up to connect to a local server. Let it connect to that. Cancel out of this project. Come up here, go to Edit, Preferences, come down to Server, and uncheck Enable Local Server, and then paste in the VPN IP address. You don't have to worry about auth and these credentials that are populated in here. These are default credentials, and because we don't have this checked, they won't matter. Additionally, we don't have to worry about allowing port 3080 through our security group because we're accessing through a VPN, so this will be allowed by default because everything's piping through the VPN that we just created. Alright, once we got that IP address in there, we click OK. It'll stop the local server. And there we go. We have our main server. We can see CPU utilization registering and RAM utilization. And we don't have any iOSs or IOUs presently loaded or configured in this GNS3 client. But from this point forward, you would configure your iOSs or IOUs in your GNS3 client exactly as you would as if you were running this entire setup on your local machine. So from this point, we install our IOUs or iOSs, and we can continue from there to build out our lab environment. We can leave the GNS3 server running as long as we want to use our GNS3 lab. Otherwise, we probably want to shut it down so we're not incurring a cycle usage against our EC2 free tier usage. So we can either shut this down or we can completely terminate this instance. If we're going to terminate it, we probably don't want to go through all that work again. We probably want to have some type of artifact which we can recreate this. So the easiest way to do that is to turn this GNS3 server into an AMI. We need to make a snapshot of the EC2 instance. So we come down here to snapshots, and we click create snapshot, and underneath volumes we see that our GNS3 server is listed. Give it a thoughtful description. We can add a tag, name, GNS3 server, snapshot, and create snapshot. This may take a little bit of time. Okay, our snapshot is now completed. Once it's completed, make sure that it's checked. Go up to Actions and Create Image. Give it a name, GNS3 Server AMI, AMI of GNS3 Server as the description. All the other settings here we can leave default and create. And if we go under AMIs, we see that we now have a new private AMI. And from this AMI, we can continually launch pre-configured GNS3 server instances. Also, something to keep in mind is each time you start an EC2 instance that's a GNS3 server, or you launch a new AMI, its public IP address will be different. You need to log into your EC2 instance and pull off the URL to download your OpenVPN configuration file, and then go back into the OpenVPN GUI and import that file in order to connect your OpenVPN to the GNS3 server. Okay, that pretty much wraps it up. If I've left anything out or you have any further tips, please let me know. All right, thanks.